Okay.
So you were answering phones.
You know, answer the phone. I set up guard duty. By this time, they had sent in a trainload of parts for the A-bomb. They came in from White Sands, New Mexico. And on top of each boxcar was an FBI agent with a submachine gun cradled in his arm on every car. And those cars rock as they come in. And those FBI agents are on top of the cars balancing themselves. It was a movie. It was a movie. And I'm aboard ship watching all this. And of course, when you're aboard ship in the position I was in, I'm way up off the water so I can look down and see everything that's going on. And that was probably one of the more exciting things of getting this A-bomb loaded. Of course, I didn't know what they were loading. Didn't have a clue. But one thing I did know, if I had an opportunity to pull guard duty or to drive a truck and take the new guard out and drop them off at the proper place, I knew which I was going to do. I volunteered right away. Can anybody drive a truck? Yes. I couldn't drive a truck. Those guys on guard duty were so mad at me because I started and I jerked them there in the back of the truck, and I jerked them back there, and I stopped fast, and it was amazing. They still remember that. Ed Bissell still won't admit that he shot at me because he hollered halt, and I didn't hear him, and I didn't stop, and they had us all scared to death. And so he fired around, and I came out of that truck saying, "Ed, it's me. Hey, it's me." But that actually happened. I challenge him today. No, that wasn't me, but it was.
We'll have to talk to him about that. Oh, that's great. So, how'd you find out that you guys were? Oh, when did you find out that you had a nuclear weapon on your boat?
Weapon? You know, I honestly can say that I don't know that we found out until probably 6 weeks before the first detonation. We found that out because we were told that they were going to detonate this first bomb from a tower on an island. And we were pretty much parked, if you want to call it that. Our ship was probably about 3 miles from this island. And it didn't face into it. It was kind of backed into it. And so the night before the first detonation, by this time, we know that there's something pretty big going on. We don't know exactly what it is, but we know that that the scientists aboard ship don't know what's going on either. And so it was a little scary for everybody. They didn't know for sure if they could contain that detonation after they set it off. You know, in their mind, and you'll read this in a lot of stories, in their mind, they might start something that's going to end the world. Because this fusion and how it goes, are you sure that it's going to stop once you start it? And so everybody was pretty nervous about that whole thing. And so the way I was set up, nothing in the ears, you had no protection from the explosion, but they had goggles that covered. You put them on, you couldn't see. It was just completely blank. Everything you couldn't see. You couldn't see anything. It was that dark. Everything was gone. Now everybody didn't have goggles, but I and another young man was charged with taking the 16mm cameras up to what they called the poop deck, and that faced the island that they were going to detonate the bomb from. And we had these 16mm cameras set up there. And I'm not going to tell the rest of that story because they told me not to. But the idea was that if something went wrong, I was supposed to throw these rubber barrels over the side of the ship that had corks on ropes all the way around, and then I was supposed to get in there with a flare gun if something, went entirely wrong, I would be with the filming part, and I could set off my flare guns, and they could find me, and they could get the film, and do all that kind of stuff. Of course, hell, I thought that was exciting. I didn't, I didn't know they were feeding me to the sharks. It's just one of those new things. And so, this is on what they call the poop deck. The poop deck is about three decks above the main deck, and it's very small, and it's got wooden floor and so forth. And I don't know what the rank of the officers were that was up there, but probably pretty high. And so when that first detonation went off, which was very scary for me, because I don't know what's happening, but I know it's a big thing, because they've got 16mm cameras, so it has to be a big thing, say. And so, got my goggles on. The detonation is like 4:10 in the morning, 4:15 in the morning, still dark. Detonation goes off. Everything lights up like daylight, just beyond daylight, bright. Everything just, you could see forever. I take my goggles off. Boom! The concussion of that bomb knocked me flat on my back. I mean, big time. Now, some of the guys that were there, they already knew, probably most of them but me, and this friend of mine. Man, I mean, it just, boom, we're down. So it was, and it was very exciting. But that first instance of putting the goggles on and the anticipation of what was maybe gonna happen, that was the scariest part of the whole thing. After that, it was all fun and games, because we didn't have to be scared anymore. And they would fly pilotless 4-motor bombers through the radiation about 300 feet off the water. And you look out and you see these big 4-motor bombers with the, on the inside you can see the controls moving back and forth, but no pilots. That was spooky.
Well,
yeah, that was spooky. And they would fly those right by the ship. And they would land them on Eniwetok, which was about probably 6 or 7 miles from where the ship was at. Land them, refuel them, or do whatever they did. They was trying to collect the amount of radiation that was being exploited on that from that first explosion. After that, it was all fun and games, with the exception of the Marines that were on deck. They had no goggles. They sat with their back to the explosion, and I remember they were doubled up and had to hold their ankles or something. And I remember that on one detonation, the wind changed, and they had to burn all their clothes because of the shift in the wind and coming over. But I never had to experience any of that because of the situation I was in.
Describe the feeling that was going through your head when you saw the flash, the moment after being scared and you see the flash.
Yeah.
Describe the feelings and the thoughts that were going through your head.
It was hard to believe with these goggles that you cannot see through. It was hard to believe that suddenly you could see through them as if you didn't have them on. The brightness of the explosion was so bright. Kwajalein was about 300 or 400 miles from us, as I remember. And I swear I could see Kwajalein. Now, I don't know if I could or not. But it was so clear and so bright, you could see forever. Wherever you looked, you could see forever. And I don't know how long that lasted, but it lasted long enough so that you got a chance, the opportunity to look. And you could see, you could just see everything as clear as a bell. And as far as you could see, You could see it was just like being, well, this is not even an example of brightness. You know, the brightness was beyond anything that we would ever experience again. It was just, it was so bright, and then it was out, and it wasn't exactly dark again, but because of the initial brightness, it seemed like it was, but it wasn't. That was, by this time, it's probably 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, to the best of my recollection, and it's starting to get daylight on its own. You know, why they picked that time of the day for detonation is only for them to know. We don't know why they do things like that. Fascinating. I was very lucky to be involved in something like that. Very lucky to be involved in something like that. How many people do we know that got to stand up behind two 16mm cameras and flick them on, battery operated, and then wait for this detonation, not knowing what we were waiting for? That was the first time. After that, we know what we're waiting for, and we're really looking forward to it. And then we start hearing all these wild stories about how there was no island left. And on one of the detonations, there wasn't any island left. There was just a big hole in the ground. It just disappeared. But not on this one. This one, this first detonation, wasn't that severe. There was no tower left. The tower evaporated.
I can definitely see how it could.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time, would you watch it again? If you could go back in time right now, if somebody offered you the opportunity to go back onto the Curtiss and watch it.
Oh, absolutely, in a heartbeat. Sure. I would be a lot more serious about it, and I would be a lot more intelligent about what's going to happen, and I would get much more out of it than what I got. I would, you know, I'd have some knowledge, and I would be preparing myself with some more knowledge before another detonation, so that I could speak intelligently about it rather than just talk about it.
When have you felt any of the after effects of the radiation yourself?
Do I have to what?
Have you felt any of the effects of radiation, the after effects of radiation yourself?
No. No, I heard that some of the people did, but there was no, for myself, there was no physical problems at all. I had no, first of all, I didn't know what radiation was. So I could have turned on at night, you know, to a bright green, and I wouldn't have known why. but I didn't know anything about radiation, and so my hair didn't fall out, I didn't get sick, nothing happened, so it must be a safe product.
That's going in the documentary. I like that. Other than the bomb, what was the most intense moment that you guys had in the Curtiss?
For me, the most tense moment was, and I'm using a time that's not going to be entirely accurate, I'm sure, but my most tense moment was 4:15 in the morning, and it's still dark, and everybody's very, very quiet. Nobody's talking, and we're up on the poop deck, and we're waiting for something to happen. We don't know what it is. We weren't told. We weren't briefed as to that they were going to set off an atomic bomb. We were just there. We had 16mm cameras, so they must be going to do something exciting, but we didn't know what. And so the most tense moment was just that momentary time when it was before it was detonated. Once it was detonated, there was kind of a universal sigh of relief by the group, because we're still here. You know, we didn't know whether we were going to be here or not, for sure. or we did, or if we didn't know any difference, but the scientists didn't know that for sure. They didn't know that this thing was going to be successful. And so, yeah, that stands out as being by far the most tense moment. After that was over, nothing was tense anymore. Mm-hmm. Everything was just status quo.
Was there a moment that you felt like you were going to die?
No. No, I had a lot of I had a lot of faith in my commanding officers, and I didn't know the scientists, obviously. We protected them and guarded them and did this and did that. But our Marine commanders, we trusted them. We didn't, it never entered my mind that they'd have us do something that we'd get hurt at, unless it was combat, and then they trained us as well as they could to protect ourselves in combat. So, no. There was never a time when I was worried or concerned about being hurt or killed or anything else. No.
Looking back on it right now, do you feel that you helped deter World War III, or even that you were a significant part in the Cold War?
No. No, I can't. I couldn't honestly take credit for anything that happened before or after, in terms of saving lives, in terms of protecting people. This was just something that seemingly had to be done, and it had to be done by the right people. And it had to be done as a team. We were all part of that team. The guys that were playing ping pong behind the locked door, they were part of the team. We were to protect them so that they could continue to play ping pong. But there wasn't any feeling of saving the world or saving our lives or saving somebody else's lives. Never entered our mind because we trusted the people that we worked with. They wouldn't do something that would kill us or other people deliberately.
Think about it right now, though. Do you think that you contributed to that?
I'd feel the same way. Yeah.
The secrecy, that's right. I was going to ask you this question about the secrecy and the idea that you guys were under the Rosenberg Act, and that if you guys told anybody that you get killed. Tell me a little bit about that. And we had talked about it over here a minute ago, about that.
To tell you more about what
the Rosenberg Act. The idea that if you told anybody what you were doing, you get executed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we were convinced. We were convinced that the powers that be, which would be our commanders, that if we told anybody about anything that was going on, that we would be taken out and executed. And there was never any question in our mind. I wasn't going to go to sleep on watch if somebody was going to take me out and execute me. It never entered my mind. I made damn sure I didn't, because the way it was told to us, I was convinced, you know, and I viewed it as their right to do that. This is part of the Marine Corps, this business of following orders. You follow orders because you know that the people that are giving the orders know what they're talking about and know what they're doing, and they're not going to put you in harm's way deliberately. If you get in harm's way, it's because you didn't do what they told you to do. So yeah, when that young man disappeared, he was. Tell me about the young man that disappeared. Tell me. Yeah, he was on watch, and he went to sleep on watch. It was like they had 4-hour shifts, 12 to 4. He went to sleep between 12 and 4. Somebody relieved him. We never saw him again. Meaning that they transferred him off ship so that they could convince us that what they were telling us was the truth. And we believed it. We thought, oh my God, that poor... And what I thought about was that poor kid's parents. My God. Here he comes into the Marine Corps and he's trying to serve his country, and they take him out and execute him because he can't stay awake. And it was so hot down there, very few people Could have stayed awake. You had to fight yourself all the time in order to stay awake. It was, and then you got the ping pong drill, you know, bing, bing, bing. In the beginning, now I didn't have to do much of that. My job was to assign other people to that duty. So I was pretty popular sometimes. But I did go down there in that hold where that locked door was, and I swear, if you ever heard a ping pong game, you would know that they were playing ping pong in there sometime during the day.
Oh man! So did you ever meet any of these scientists?
Do what?
Did you ever get to meet any of these scientists?
No, I wasn't going to be a Navy scientist.
No, did you ever meet one?
Oh, sure.
What kind of people? What were these scientists like?
They were very close-mouthed, not friendly.
Well, describe the moment that you met one of these scientists. What happened?
The first time I met one, he was coming out from behind this locked door, and I was coming down. And I just reached out to shake hands with him, and he kind of looked at me, you know, out of the side of his face, and he took my hand, but he kept right on walking. He never said hello, blah, 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 nothing. Later, I met one of the scientists in our office. My commanding officer wasn't Shropshire, it was Campbell, Captain Campbell. Captain Campbell says to me, "This is one of the men that you are guarding downstairs." And I said, "Oh, are you guys playing ping pong down there?" That didn't sit well with him.
What did he say?
He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. He just kind of clammed up. And I don't know what he was doing in the office, to be honest with you, because they did not mingle with the ship's staff. They were completely separate from the ship's staff. But once in a while, like in this case, I suppose maybe he had to send a message or something, and so he stopped by. And they were dressed, of course, in civilian clothes, not very well, as I recall. You know, just an old shirt, no tie, maybe some run-over shoes, and that was it. Age-wise, I remember most of them were probably in mid-late 40s. They were not young. Maybe even older than that, I don't know.
I had heard a rumor that once that Oppenheimer was on the ship at one point. Which I thought was
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know. We were the flagship. And so the commanding officer, and I apologize for not being able to give you his name right now. He was an admiral. We were the flagship, so all the messages and so forth came in and went out of our ship to the surrounding supporting ships and crews and so forth. And if Oppenheimer ever came aboard ship, he did it when I was sleeping because I would have recognized him. I would have recognized him just from having seen him in Time magazine and so forth, pictures of him. Skinny man, loosely dressed, you know, hair that was sometimes uncombed. He just stood out. But no, I don't believe he was ever. He could have been there many times, but I don't think so, because our security was such that anybody that came and went on the ship was under our guidance.
Mm-hmm. Hey, 1 second here. How much time do I have left in the battery?
Oh, we got nothing, man.
Here, close that thing and then plug in the